Awesome, awesome. So today's Radio Kitchen pays attention to a meal that is really, really loved in Zimbabwe, in most Zimbabwean homes. That is, of course, the rice dish. But what makes this experience unique is the creativity you can adopt in the kitchen to make sure your meal is as tantalizing as ever. So, we'll jump straight into it. We'll just jump straight into it. Perhaps it's prudent to start with the types of rice, because vamwe vedu ndo patinotosara pakutoziva kuti rice racho rinenge ramboita sei. So I'll start with you, Mama, kuti what are the most common types of rice that are found in and around Zimbabwe?
Maraisi edu anobva kuna China, Asia, hanzi ndo staple food yavo. Tindotaura vana India, vana China uko ndo kunobva rice.
Right.
Saka kune matypes erice akawanda wanda anobva ikoko akawanda, vana basmati rice, that's a very lovely chef chenge ndofunga you believe that's a wonderful. Yes. It's expensive zvayo as it's the best rice. Kune marice akawanda wanda, kune na long rice, short rice dzinoshandiswa mumapudding nemuma desserts and so on. Kune mamwe marice anobva kuMalawi. Manzi Malawi vanorima because kune mvura yakawanda, rice inoda mvura yakawanda, saka kuMalawi vanorima imwe long grain and so on. There are a lot of varieties tikatoswera tichitaura nezverice akawanda. And like I always want to talk about nutrients rice. Rice yakanaka anzi is blessed ne vitamins akawanda, ne minerals akawanda, ne anzi complex carbohydrate. Yeah, takambowana last week muma pasta ne noodles. Iyo anzi yakanaka chaizvo, is everlasting, inotora nguva yakawanda yakareba ichikupa energy. Yakawanda. And I understand maybe our wine guy vachataura nezvazvo. Japanese hands, they are very innovative. Vanoita drinks ne wine ne rice, vanoita wine zvekare ne rice. Maybe Mr. Tapes vanoziva some of them, I don't know, but ndo kunzwisisa kwangu about it. Munomu tine rice redu atinaro, not traditional rice, hanzi red rice kana mpunga mutsvuku. I understand kuFrance mpunga iyoyo uriko vanourima. Hamene kuti takakumbira mbeu kwavari here kana kuti ndo vakakumbira mbeu kwatiri, we don't know, but iririko. It's known for its chewiness. Muchidya uchazonzwa kutesta ine kachewiness kainako. It's very nice. That's a sign of kuti iri full ne fiber.
Right.
Ine fiber. Ndo marice aya asiri very polished, highly polished. It's a very healthy rice. Sema pasta saeta kunzi ari healthy. Ma brown pasta saya tine brown rice iyoyo ne iyoyo red rice iri pegged with fiber yakanaka pautano. But munoona kuti vazhinji vedu tinyanyi kufarira hanzi inoipa zvinhu zviri healthy, vazhinji vanoti zvinoshata. So tinoda kuona kuti tozvibika sei kuti zvitibatsire muutano.
Lovely. Chef, how important is it to know, these types of rice? Because most of us know big rice, to be fair. So long grain, what. But how important is it when you want to prepare the meal to first understand the type of rice that you want to use?
Well, it depends on what you're making. Like in the culinary world, for example, if you're making sushi, you use your sushi rice, which is a short grain rice. When you cook it, it's got a lot of starch in it, so it becomes very sticky and thick, and that's what you want, to hold your sushi together. When you make something like a risotto, again, you use risotto rice, which is another short grain rice, which has a lot of starch. So you want all that starch, to bring your dish together. Now, when you're doing something like your ordinary rice kumba, rice ma one. So basmati rice does that.
Yes.
You see, it's the best to do that. I'm not saying that our other rices, our other long grain rices don't, but usually your basmati and your jasmine, it's very difficult to get those wrong. It's very difficult to have sadza rice using those types of rice. So it just depends on what you want to make. But when it just comes to ordinary home use, your usual long grain rice is fine, or your basmati rice is also fine.
Interesting. Before we get into the proper way of preparing the rice meal, Tabs, let me patch you into the conversation here. What influences the type of wine that then matches with the different rice dishes?
Thanks very much. Very good question. So what's going to influence normally is the protein that we're going to choose to accompany the meal, or the vegetables, because that's where we're going to get our flavor and aromas from. So rice by itself typically is a starch and does not really have an aroma, except perhaps for the jasmine that was being spoken about, which is quite floral. And you want to match the flavors that come out of there, because starch is rather plain. But of course, when you put starch into your mouth, your saliva is actually an enzyme that begins to break down the starch and convert it into sugar. That's why you have that sweetish taste. So that alone is what should go on in terms of selecting the wine you want. So you want to know, what is my waramba going to prepare as the protein and as the vegetable, the accompaniment, or what is Chef Chenge doing in the kitchen there. Once you know that, then you're able to pick the correct wine to create balance on your palate, so that you've got a pleasant experience there.
Interesting. This rice wine beverage, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So the beverage is actually called sake. This is Japanese rice wine is what it's referred to. And if you go back to our previous episodes, you'll note that we mentioned that you can convert starch or carbohydrates into sugar, which is the same process that was happening in the mouth when you're eating. So they literally take rice and convert through an enzymatic process. They convert the starch into sugar, and that then allows your fermentation process to take place. So introduce yeast and allow the yeast to eat the sugar, and once you've got that is fermentation, and the result is an alcoholic beverage, which they further distill quite often, and normally it's very low alcohol wine, and it's got a particular taste. They call it wine, and in typical wine wells they would not be allowed to, but that's why it's got its name, sake. So it's a clear beverage. It looks like a spirit, but not as strong, and it's a bit warm as you drink it. And if you watch Chinese movies, you see them drinking quite a lot of it, or the Japanese movies. It's a pleasant alcoholic beverage, and straightforward, really not much of an aroma is what I would say, but you think that it's a different beverage because it's made from this particular grain. And bear in mind that we use grains, including rice, wheat, barley, etc., to make a lot of spirits, particularly your whiskey and some of our gin and vodka.
Interesting stuff. Now, going to the preparation of the rice, Mama, mabikira achawe rice anofana kuitwa ndeapi? Because haisi tine maversion edu ekuprepare rice, dzimwe nguva tinongorikanda mumvura imo mutoti zvinokwatirana imomo, dzimwe nguva tinozoisa mvura yaboila. But what's the proper way of preparing a rice dish?
Pakubika rice zvataurwa naChef Chenge kuti unofana kuziva type yerice nezvauri kushandisa rice yacho. Kana iri risotto woziva zvauri kuita, kana iri sushi woziva zvauri kuita. Ndoda kungoti taurei kachoma. Vanhu vanonyoziva kuti unoera makapu emvura, unofana kuziva proportion yemakapu emvura nerice. Normally people say 1 cup rice to 2 cups dzemvura. zvinodhipenda manje netype yerice yacho, because pane pamwe paunoti uchibika rice rako woisa 1 cup iyo yerice ne 2 cups yemvura, proportion yakadaro woona hadina kunatsoibva, wozopedzisira wakuwedzera. Saka zvinodhipenda netype yerice. Vanhu pavanobika ndo paunonge wakuza kuti inini rice, unonzwa vanhu vakuti inini rice rangu ndodai type yerice racho ndo rinokudirecta kuti uzive kuti unoisa rice rakadini nemakapa akadi emvura. For example, rice randabika rechibhoyi, it's a hard type of rice. Kernel yacho yakasimba, rinoda nguva yakawanda yakareba pamoto, like almost an hour uchiribika, rinoda mvura yakawanda. First time yandakamboribika ndida kunyatsotedzera zvarinoita, ndakaisa 2 cups dzinoiswa, ndikaona kuti harina kuibva, ndikaisa another 2, saka which means 1 cup is inowirirana ne 4 cups dzeflour rice. Sorry, ndakutaura zveflour totaura zvakawanda munomu. Saka rinoda mvura yakawanda, and kazhinji inini ndichibika rice ndinenge ndiripo, zvandinoita ndinoisa mvura shoma at a time, ndichiona kuti tiri kuita sei, ndichitesta kusvika ndasvika pamvura yandinoona kuti ndo inoitirana naizvozvo. But hapo panoyerwa makapu, 1 cup 2 cups, 1 cup 4 cups according to the type of rice yaunenge uchibika.
Interesting. Pane zvimwe here zvinofanira kunge zvichiedwa into the rice.
Unogona kuita salt pasi paunoboila mvura yako, unoisa salt yako kuti kupawo flavor kurice yako. Pane mamwe paunoda kukala rice yako, unogona kuisa vana turmeric kuti ite kakala kakanaka that yellowish color. Kana kuti unogona kuisawo tuma keri, unogona futi kuisa futi kuti zvinyatsoita zvakanaka, maspice wakasiyana siyana. Kune imwe vanoti rice spice, unogona kuisawo kuti rice rako rinyatsokunaka.
Interesting. Question here coming through on the WhatsApp platform. And I want to ask you, what could be the problem if you cook your rice and then water is very yakwana, but the top part and unit are well cooked, but the bottom part and the sides they are half cooked? What causes the imbalance? Also, how do you measure the amount of salt to put when you are cooking your rice? Chef, you want to take that one?
Amount of salt depends on you. But I would say, let's say if it's 1 cup rice, 2 cups, that's just the general rule of thumb, that 1 cup rice, 2 cups water, then maybe you can put about 2 teaspoons of salt.
Right.
You're definitely going to taste it, but if you want more, you can always add later, even though health practitioners don't advise adding salt to food, to food that's already cooked. But you can, if it's 1 cup rice, maybe try about 2 teaspoons of salt, and you add that. Now, why it's maybe cooking at different temperatures, maybe the person isn't adding the rice to boiled water. You'll get some people where what they do first is they'll put a bit of oil in their pot, they'll fry the 1 cup rice for maybe about 30 seconds, and then they'll add 2 cups of boiled water. That way it's already starting to boil, and then they'll mix that in. Some people, they'll first put the pot on the stove, heat it up, put 2 cups water, let that boil, then add the 1 cup rice into there. So I'll suggest that just make sure you're using boiled water, not lukewarm, room temperature, almost boiled, but actual boiled water. And another thing, when you're cooking your rice, you need to make sure you watch your temperature. Don't just keep it on high the whole time, because that way it will cook in some parts, and then maybe in the middle it actually won't even be cooked. At the bottom it will definitely be burnt. So as you cook your rice,
3 stages.
Exactly. So while you're cooking your rice, make sure as the water is reducing, you're also reducing your temperature, so that at least it cooks through and you don't have that burnt rice at the bottom, or you don't have your sadza rice and things like that.
Interesting, quite interesting. And I think a lot of us do but make a mistake about pakuti ati balance yacho kuti toifambisa sei.
I actually only started cooking rice properly about 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
I used to hate cooking rice because I could never get it right. It was always too much water, then I'd have to add lovi, so that now we just have it as rice, lovi rice. Or
when it was nasa the rice, and
it would be undercooked, and I'd have to chuck it away. Up at the bottom, it's burnt. So, I mean, rice is something easy to cook, but it's also hard to cook.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why there's now rice cookers, to make our lives easier.
Which was actually going to be my next question. Is using the rice cooker the best way to prepare rice?
It's an easy way.
Okay.
It's
Because
Yeah. I'm a working mom. I'm tired. I have to come home and cook for my screaming children. I've got electricity for once in the whole week. So I'll just chuck in my 1 cup rice, 2 cups water, put in some seasoning if you'd like, or even some herbs, close it, and it does its thing. It's much easier.
I like it.
Can
Chaps,
I comment there?
pardon?
Can I just add a comment there before you ask the question?
Yes, sure.
I want to speak just for the bachelors as well. So just called out the busy mom. I think the bachelors mostly don't want to go through the entire process of manning the pot. And I think rice cookers would be a good recommendation. Is that not correct, Chef Chinge?
Yeah, that's very true. I think a rice cooker is perfect for bachelors, especially if they want to entertain some guests. One of our talking fancy, right? They'll do their rice, pack it up in a nice little bowl, and just hide the rice cooker. So it is perfect for bachelors.
I'm getting my rice cooker today, Chaps. Don't worry. But yeah, just coming to you again, Chaps. Question: is wine a natural accompanying beverage for a rice dish?
Yes, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, as we said before, the important thing with wine is choose a good wine, and any good wine will go with any good meal. So remember, we've already got rice, and you could eat rice by itself if you choose the right type. And I'm pretty sure Chef Chenge Waramba could tell you, right, you're broke, you only have rice, choose this type of rice, and you can do things with it. I think they'll speak about fried rice, which Chef Chenge was referring to. And in that instance, I want to have my fried rice, which is going to have salt and maybe a few spices. Which wine do I go with? There are options, several options. So at the very beginning, what I like to teach when I'm teaching people to drink wine is find what you think is a good wine and go with that. But we want to start affecting our rice. We're adding salt, we're adding whatever spices we add. We're not creating new flavors that we can start putting into balance with the choice of wine. It's going to come about to us experiencing more and more wine. It's red with a wide variety of choices. And the journey starts with, every Friday with Radio Kitchen sipping on a good wine.
I like it. So I gather also, the more you know your wine, the better you can now match the two. Yeah.
That's correct, because you become you start to pinpoint. I think as we prepare for our programs, we talk behind the scenes, and we were talking about wines would marry well with various dishes. And for me, because wine is a passion, I've been doing this for quite a long time. Once I was told what proteins and veggies would accompany the rice dishes, a certain wine pops into my mind immediately. And what's left is just for the cooking to be done and for me to be able to taste the wine.
I like it. Now, getting back, Mama, to you. Is it a must kuti rice must be accompanied by a soup or a sauce? Because, naturally, you can't eat rice ragadar for most of us. But I don't know now, kuti, is it a must or there are other ways that you can, you can be creative with in terms of preparing your rice and serving it?
Rice semazira angu rakati siyani ni mapasta atakaita last time taiti kune masosis rice rakasiyana. Rice it's not about masosis zvayo unogona kusanganisa like nedovi unoisa dovi imomo ubva rice rako, kana kuti unogona kugadzira peanut sauce paside, ubika rice rako zvekungoribhoila then mozosanganisa muchiisa kudhishi rako raunenge wabika. Most of madishes andoona parice vana jollof rice and so on vanobikawo nevamwe, isusu ndo zvatiri kuedzawo kuitawo munomuka. Tino ma 1 pot meal rice inoita kwazvo pama 1 pot meal yekuti unogona kuti beef rako, vegetables woisa imomo, woita nerice rako, maprotein, so on so on. Saka rice nemasosis it's not really a must yekuti kunofanira kuva nemasosis.
Okay.
But kana wachida munogona zvakuitawo kuti riite sei zvisaita dry.
Okay.
Kana waona kuti dish wabika riri dry woitawo nesosi yako.
Either way, what are some of the other sources, chef, that we can include to our rice meal, not necessarily sticking to our soups as we are used to?
Now it depends on what is accompanying your rice. For example, let's say like today I made coconut rice. Coconut rice goes well with fish dishes like maybe just your grilled hake or grilled tilapia. So you can serve that with like a lemon sauce, which will probably moisten up the fish, meaning now you don't really have to add a sauce to the rice because the rice is pretty moist on its own.
Right.
So you can have things like a lemon sauce. Let's say if you're having with some chicken, you can have a mushroom sauce or even just an ordinary white sauce, even a cheese sauce. It just depends on the protein you're serving it with. If you're not serving with the protein which is your meat, let's just say it's a vegetarian dish, you can still do the same. Have your garlic sauces, your mushroom sauce, a rich gravy. If you're having like your brown gravies, that's if you're having maybe your beef or your pork, then yeah, that's fine.
Interesting. Tabs, again, pitching you into the conversation, should you pay attention to the type of sauce you're going to have your rice with when you're considering your wine?
Absolutely, because your sauce is, it's going to be responsible for a lot of what your flavor is going to be. So that's going to determine, is it a heavy sauce, is it a cheese sauce like Chef Chengi was referring to, or perhaps are you having a Roadrunner sauce, the traditional sauce, and how strong is that flavor? What do you want to mark? Because sometimes, as both chefs you've got in the studio will tell you, if you're cooking game meat, for example, you're trying to mask that strong smell of game, and you might use juniper, which we spoke about, and you're trying to mask that. So what wine is going to be strong enough to allow that to happen without overtaking the characteristics that you're looking for in the first place in that dish? So it's very, very important. And you don't want your wine to be overbearing and to take away from the meal that, one of these chefs has gone to great lengths to prepare. So that you're always looking for that balance so that it's a beautiful experience. Is there too much chili in there? And what do? You then want a wine that's slightly sweeter to create a bit of balance. Remember, I think last time we were speaking about a sauce that might be super creamy, and you want a wine that's very fresh, is the terms that we use in the industry. A wine that's got a higher acidity which cuts through the fat. So you're creating all these balances as you're searching for your wine. And as you become more experienced, it's simple to say, right, okay, Chef Chengi is making a rice with 4 cheese sauce. That's going to be heavy, it's going to be filling. So I need something light, but that cuts through that fat just to allow me to not be oversaturated and full and failing to get up from the table. So what do I want? I want a crispy, young, fresh Sauvignon Blanc, right? Because remember, with wine, we are also looking at what the vintage is. And when we say vintage, that's that year that we see on the bottle of wine, which tells us when the grapes that made that wine were harvested. So is that wine young and fresh, i.e. 2 years old, or is it a long-aged wine which was made 5 to 10 years ago? And how does that affect the wine? So those are all important things that we will consider when we want to choose our wine.
Interesting, quite interesting. Now, tambotora nyaya yana basmati. I don't know kuti rekumaland unonzi kilo something, kilomere or kilombe rice. I'm not quite
kilo
sure.
something.
Yeah, kilo something, but I've seen it somewhere. And I'm glad you talked about kuti it's easier to cook. Because in the people write out, the aroma is nice. And I thought, if that's the only thing, is there not any other type of rice? But is there another catch to it besides the whole aroma, or perhaps it's the whole idea kuti tongo because it is?
I think it's just that it's a bit easier, but also the aroma, the taste as well, because it actually does have a certain taste to it. But I think it's just about trying to get it right. Usungaite sadza rice, type of thing.
I understand. Someone here asked, what about cooking the rice before cooking or after? Then putting cooking oil, and when they fry rice into cooking oil with some fura. Mama, you want to take that one?
Yeah, zvinoita izvozvo noikwanisa kuifraya. You can oisa matomatoes ako, garlic ako, whatever, then wofraya, woisa rice ako wofraya. But normally harinyatsosvika pakuibva zvakanaka nekungofraya chete. You need to add some stock. Like you've cooked my vegetables ako, then that mvura iya yaunobvisa iya, that's what we call stock. Wopota uchiedha kuraisi rako kusvika rasvika pakuibva kwaunoda.
It just depends kuti iwe unoda kuti zvisvike papi.
Nekungotiwo raibva zvinofanira kuibva raisi, rikasaibva it's not okay.
So
Frying will also help to bring out the aroma and flavor as well. That's why you'll see that some people, they'll put oil and then fry their rice first, because it helps with the flavor and the aroma as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we say kuti raiva, how do you notice it? Like, is it's not too moist? Like, how do you? I don't know if you understand. Kuti pakusonyasonzwisa kuti the texture ya rice yaiva inenge yakaita sei?
It's soft to the bite.
Okay.
Unlike, with our pasta, remember last week Maya Waramba was saying we don't want to overcook it, where it now just becomes all mushy. You want it to be, in French they say al dente, which is firm to the bite. So with rice, we don't want it very firm to the bite, but we also don't want it too soft. So it should still have a little bit of texture to it. That's how you'll know that it's actually cooked. But again, it also depends on what you're making. For example, I'll use the sushi again. Usually if you're doing your sushi, it'll be quite soft. Or if you're doing your rice pudding, it'll probably be quite soft. If it's just your ordinary rice at home, then it just shouldn't be too mushy as if it's been mashed up by a masher. But, it should just have a bit of texture to it, but fully cooked. Yeah.
Another question coming through says, is there readily prepared coconut rice that we can buy in stores, or you can prepare using your rice of choice and then add coconut water?
I haven't seen ready cooked coconut rice, but these days you can find anything. So maybe it's there and I just haven't seen it, but I haven't seen it. When it now comes down to cooking your coconut rice, I like to use coconut milk. You can find it in a lot of supermarkets. I still do the ratios of 1:2, but I don't only use the milk. I'll also use water. So maybe I'll use 1 cup, I'll use like 1 cup rice, and I'll use 1 cup coconut milk and then 1 cup boiled water. And I also make sure that the coconut milk is hot as well. That's what I'll use. But you have to be very careful because it does burn extremely easily. So you have to be very careful with your heat.
We can't talk about anything food related without talking about the health aspect of things. Mama Mbotora nutritional value in rice. Maybe you can take us through that again, Kuti. It's actually in a weight cutter, but brown rice is a weight cutter. So which rice might be advisable for, especially for one who are watching their weight?
Iyo brown rice is very good because ine fiber yakawanda. Brown rice ine fiber yakawanda. Fiber inobatsira kuti kana wadya zvinhu zvinogezwa. Saka ndo panoita kuti usava weight yakakana. If you are weight watching, usava weight yakanyanya. Inobatsira. Saka brown rice ine fiber yakawanda, ine vitamins yakawanda, ine minerals as well, and then carbohydrates atataura compound carbohydrates haya iri light mostly vanhu vakadya rice unonzwa kuti ndakazonzwa nzara usiku because it's light, it's not that heavy. So yakanakira pane vanhu vanoita weight watching.
Tabs, what's to avoid in terms of wine selection for a rice meal?
Goodness, really, what I'll say is it's quite open. We come back to what our accompaniments are. So there is where we would avoid. For example, if we had a dish that is made with fish, and let's say it's bean or local bean, in that case, I wouldn't go for what we call a full-bodied red wine. Simply because a red wine is what we call tannins, a lot of tannins, and they add to what we call the body. And it's so heavy, it probably has age to it, it probably has flavors that come from wood, from the way it was made. And it's just a big, bold wine that would over-dominate our wine. So that is where we lose problems. That's where we get into problems. When you take a wine that's going to now dominate the food, and that's what a red does. A red typical of the one that I'm talking about, such as your Bordeaux, your Bordeaux blend, big wines like that. They're going to dominate, and you don't want that. So you want to pair something like that with something that is maybe beef. You're having a T-bone steak that's been nicely grilled. Then you're having two very strong, bold tastes coming together, and they create some sort of balance. Because what you want to stay away from is anything that's going to dominate the taste, and you end up having a meal that tasted like I was having wine turned into rice and whatever it was accompanied. So it's the same thing. I think the chefs will agree. When you're cooking, even though you might be glazed with wine, you don't want wine to become the only thing that's tasted in the dish. So that's what we want to avoid when we are pairing our food in our wine.
Interesting. Finding that balance is very, very important. So in terms of the common mistakes, I don't know if there's anything that we missed in terms of preparation of the rice itself.
I think
Can I say
just
something?
adding
Yes, sure.
much.
Before, I quite love rice stories, and I would like the ladies to just take us gents through trying to make it on our own, because I know for a lot of us, we love it, but it's a nightmare to try and make it. So some guidance from our super chefs in the kitchen today on how to make it properly. Maybe it's a question for another episode. I'm not sure on our time, but I would really like to go through that, because I absolutely love brown rice with dory. That is the 10 de la 10.
Everyone, you speak for everyone when you talk about brown rice. Maybe you want to go into that, Mama, in terms of preparation.
Yeah, that's definitely her question.
Okay.
That's her question.
Brown rice with dory. That's how you prepare it. Isa mvura, like I said, I've been cooking it and testing it kuti ndione kuti inoda mvura yakaita sei, inogara nguva yakareba pamoto, iri nehard kernel, saka unonida mvura yakawanda. It's no longer 1 cup is to 2 cups. Inogona kuita 1 cup is to 4. Iyo inogona kuita. Kana wazoona isina kunatsosvika pakanaka, then wotiwedzerei. And when kana chisa dovi, atindi kuti rice yedu inyanyoita mazisadza. Toda kuti nyatsosiya iri right day, iri firm, zvakanatsonakanaka. Ndo rice inonaka ine dovi. So what you do is, waisa makaps ako 4, woisa to salt kwako, yaboila, woisa rice. Yobika, unenge uchicheka, be there uchiona kuti unofamba sei, kuti yaita sei, woona kuti haitsvi. Kana mvura yakuda kupera, isati yanyatsopera, wotora maybe toisa a tablespoon yedovi imomo, mvura isati yanyatsopera, then wovhara, zvoita cook together. Zvonatsaita cook together kusvika zvaita famish zviri pamwe chete, then wozomixa. Dovi rako rinoibva through the cooking yaunenge waita, paunenge wavhara paipai ukaita about 5 minutes zvakavharirwa, then dovi rako rinyatsoibva harizosariri mbishi, then you mix, wosanganisa rice rako. That's how we cook perfect brown rice nedovi.
I hope you jotted that down, Taps.
I was listening. I'll do better than that. I'll probably place an order.
Awesome. So for today's meals, maybe just getting into that, Mama. So I'll start with you.
Nasi ndabika rice iro rebrown ndambobva pane redovi ndobva ndamboti aregai ndimboitawo creative ndione kuti tingaita sei kuti ribike nerimwe nzira because vanhu vanoti harinaki saka toda kuti riite zvakanaka rinakewo risina dovi. So ndaita 1 cup yerice ndobva ndaita 4 cups dzangu dzemvura, then boiled the water, a little salt, then yobva yabikika zvakanaka. Ndanyatsoona kuti yafemu, I set it aside, ndaisa uku, then ndatora chicken ndobva ndaifrya negarlic, ndobva ndanyatsoifrya zvakanaka, then ndobva ndaedha matomatoes, ndaedha onion, ndobva ndafrya until oil yava sizzling, then ndobva spiceawo, then after that I took that rice iroro rere, then ndabva ndariisa imomo zvekare, ndobva ndachirifrya manje because kurifrya iroro kairo rinonetsa because rinotora time, the kernel is hard, so ndobva ndarifrya ndambotanga ndariboila ndobva ndarifrya ndobva raita zvakanaka mukati mechicken iye yandabika iyeye. Then I also use my vegetables. I like vegetables, as you know. Ndatora my peas, then ndaboila just shortly, ndobva ndazoa adraina ndobva ndaisawo imomo. Then what else did I put in my rice? Here ndobva ndamixa. Then I boiled some eggs, my hard boiled eggs, but ndowasiya asina ari soft boiled, ndobva ndashela, then I sliced them, ndobva ndangoaisawo imomo. That's how I cooked my rice today, my brown rice.
Interesting.
Modern brown rice.
Modern brown, contemporary brown rice.
Went to private school.
On your end, Chef?
Okay, so I made 3 types of rice. I did a coconut rice, which is just basically, I think I already explained how to do your coconut rice. And then I did a quick turmeric egg fried rice, where my Warambo spoke about how you can add turmeric to your water. So I just cooked my rice normally. I added a little bit of turmeric. You don't put too much because it can be overpowering. And then in a separate pan, I fried some onion, garlic, some peppers, yellow, green, and red for color, and a few carrots as well. I fried that, but I also wanted to keep the texture, so I didn't overcook them. And then I added about 3 eggs. I fried that to make your scrambled eggs, and then I added my rice, and that was done. The other rice that I did is it's a 1-pot spicy beef and rice dish. So again, for the bachelors, everything is done in 1 pot. So your dishes is just your cutting board and your knife and your pot that you're going to use. So what I did is I first fried off some onions for about 1-2 minutes, and then I added some mincemeat. I think people will notice I like to use mincemeat because it is a common type of meat to use. It's quick to cook, and it's affordable as well. So I fried my mince until it was just slightly browned, and then I added my rice, my 1 cup rice, fry that off for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then into that I added some garam masala. I like using the spice garam masala because it's a mixture, it's a blend of spices. It's got coriander, it's got cumin, it's got cinnamon. It's a really nice blend. So I added some garam masala, I added some salt. I also added some grated tomatoes, not chopped, grated. And then I also added some chilies. So it is a bit spicy. And then I added tinned black beans. Now, instead of black beans, you can also use your ordinary sugar beans, but they have to be cooked. So you can add your sugar beans into there. Then I mixed all of that, and then I added my 2 cups of beef stock, boiled beef stock into there. Then I just let that simmer down on a low heat until it was actually cooked. Now with that one, you don't really need a sauce to accompany it, but you can if you want. So those are the 3 rices I did.
For someone like me, you always need a sauce. Finally, for you, Taps. So now that we've established that you like your brown rice, What's the wine combination that you're going to have that rice with?
Right. Okay. So I am going to go. For me, first of all, I think my protein of choice I mentioned was Roadrunner, right? So in terms of traditional Roadrunner with rice, the wine that I would pick is the Pinot Noir, the red. Now, why do I pick that? I think we've spoken about a term that I call terroir, where the wine grown closest and made closest to where you live sort of ties in with the foods that are local to your area. So you want to be as close to home as possible. So one of the reasons that I picked Pinot Noir is a grape that was developed in South Africa. So it's very traditional to us. It's actually one of the grapes that we used to grow here in Zimbabwe when we were making wine. And we used to make fantastic Pinot Noir wine from it. And that wine has got just that bit of spice, not too much, that will complement and give that whole feel to the red wine, to the Roadrunner and to the rice story, and allow them to express themselves while creating that balance that we're always looking for. So traditionally for me, when I'm looking at rice story, that and the combination with Roadrunner, that's what I'll go for. However, there is a twist because sometimes I'm not feeling like a red wine. And this answers a question that a lot of people ask. Are certain meats only eaten with red wine and certain only with white wine? That rule is old and ancient and doesn't really work. So, for example, I could ask for a Chenin Blanc. Now, in this case, I'd want a full-bodied Chenin Blanc to complement the rice berry with the Roadrunner. So again, I'm picking based on the flavors that I've got, the traditional flavors that I've got in the wine itself versus what I'm expecting from the food.
Lovely stuff. So Pinot Noir, you said it is. Thank you so much for your time, Taps. It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much to everybody for listening, for tuning in, and thank you to the ladies for the wonderful meals. I'm just sad I'm not there to taste something, but please share the picture.
Awesome stuff. Definitely they will do that. Thank you so much as well to our guests in studio, Maya Waramba Maitabasa. It's always a pleasure having you in studio.
Thank you so much.
And to you as well, Chef Chenge. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. All right, and that's pretty much how we wrap it up on Radio Kitchen for this morning. This show comes to you each and every Friday morning between 10 and 11 for all your kitchen essentials and your kitchen hacks as well, to make sure now that I'm going to buy a rice cooker and do now at least I know how to cook rice, so it's particularly easy for me. We've got the news coming up exactly 11 o'clock, and after that we get into the last and final hour where we get into No Black Filter. Stay with us.
She kissed me first thing in the morning. Then she said